Just a few months into his congressional term in D.C., Representative Barry Moore has already seen history unfold in front of his eyes. Representative Moore, you were in D.C. for the riots that incited at the Capitol building. Can you tell me more about what that experience was like?
Well, yeah, it was a heck of a first day on the job for those of us who had to go down and contest delegates. But actually, I went, signed the documents, the resolution earlier that morning, and headed back to my office and got back to my office at Longworth when we got a lockdown notice, and we had to kind of shelter in place at Longworth at our particular office for about 11 hours. I could see the protesters or the people, you know, outside my windows, but I never felt threatened at all where I was at.
President Trump's social media platforms have quickly begun to be suspended, and you deleted your personal Twitter account after posting tweets, including one that had said, "I understand it was a black police officer that shot the white female veteran." You know that doesn't fit the narrative. What narrative were you referring to in that tweet?
Yeah, the key to that was narrative. You know, all year long we watched the people stoke these riots because of police officers shooting unarmed citizens, and so my concern was the narrative. I wasn't concerned so much with who the officer was or even who was shot, but the fact that the particular people that we saw there in the building were getting condemned and the police officers weren't being called out. And I think they did what they had to do, but it was just concerning to me that they'd used that all years to stoke riots, and all of a sudden the narrative had changed and they just kind of decided it wasn't worth reporting on.
And continuing with that fallout from the riots that has caused President Trump's second impeachment during his term, do you think he should have been blamed for the violence that ensued? I know he has some supporters that, you know, are still to this day supporting him, and you were one of his first true supporters. But then on the other side, he has some Republicans that also voted for his impeachment. How and where do you fall with this?
Well, you know, I don't think, if you look at the timeline, he was still speaking when the National Guard was called to the building. So and it was a 40-minute walk from where his stage was down to the Capitol building. So it was hard to say that he actually incited a riot. And we actually had a letter put into the record last night by Representative Davidson that said the FBI had warned us 24 hours before that there could be a potential problem. So if you look at it that way, there's no way that what he did probably incited those riots. And, you know, I'm not, if we're going to condemn one person, then we need to condemn Kamala Harris for her comments she made, Nancy Pelosi. Obviously, there's been Democrat after Democrat for the last 48 months that have stoked the fires of unrest and unlawful protest. And it's unfortunate now that he's being blamed for something that they've been doing for 48 months.
These supporters and these protests that we saw ensue last week, though, were those more Democratic or Republican, or do you think that this is just, it's not political at all?
You know, I don't really know. That's the thing, the investigation really is just getting started. So we don't know who was behind them. You know, so I can't say for sure if it was one party or the other. I know I was briefed that morning, Wednesday morning, early, before anything started. One of my friends and the colleagues in the legislature said that we have Antifa people putting on Trump shirts. At the time, that didn't make any sense to me because I said, why would they want the crowd to look any bigger? So it sounds like there may have been some mixed in, but we don't have any proof. No arrests have been made and identified necessarily that they're one crowd or the other. It's just unfortunate. When you break the law, you must be arrested. I don't care what color your T-shirt is or what your hat looks like.
Well, Representative Moore, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all you're doing out there in D.C., and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having us.